Ben Meiselas here, joined by Harry Litman of Talking Feds, former top federal prosecutor, hosts the Talking Feds podcast, has the Talking Feds YouTube channel, which is a partner of the MeidasTouch network. I'll plug more of that in a bit, but let's get right into it, Harry Litman. When we're talking about now this $83.3 million defamation verdict against Donald Trump, you and I have both done separate hot takes on that, but I really wanted to get into Federal Judge Kaplan's warning to the jury here and kind of what happens next. And Federal Judge Kaplan, who had a command of his courtroom, told jurors on Friday after the verdict issue, quote, "My advice to you members of the jury is that you never disclose to anyone that you were on this jury." Let's start there, Harry. That type of instruction, the way Judge Kaplan commanded this courtroom, kept Donald Trump in check. What do you think about that advice to jurors?
Well, yeah. So first, it's like, you would never see it except in a mob case. So he's as much as telling them, you've got, I can't protect you anymore. And there's a dangerous enemy that you've made by doing the right thing. And, stay Mr. Green and Ms. Purple and, whatever happened in Reservoir Dogs. But he is, I think, Ben, the next to E. Jean Carroll herself, the kind of MVP here. He put on a clinic in how you try to control the uncontrollable force that is Donald Trump. And I thought about it a lot. I actually, way back when, vetted him for the bench and have a sense of him. But what he did that really made sense, and what Engeron, the fraud trial judge, didn't do, he set the rules in advance. So before this weird 3-minute testimony, they have a back and forth colloquy, which really says, here's what you can do and here's what you can't do. So, and this was the same for the closing argument. So when Haba, or even Trump, but Haba in this case, tries to bend the rules a little, you have the other lawyer, Robbie Kaplan, no relation, saying right away, objection, Judge Kaplan saying sustain, sit down, and you may be looking at going to jail if you don't. So he was hard in the enforcement, but the big thing is he laid down the law in advance. That's something that you got to think Tanya Chutkin, Scott McAfee, well, maybe not Elaine Cannon, but the other two will take to school, and it really showed. I mean, in general, so much about the Trump image was pierced with the verdict today, and that's one of them. How do you shut him up, especially because maybe he wants the mistrial? Kaplan showed us how it's done.
Judge Kaplan, not surprisingly, because he is in Manhattan and sits as a federal judge there, has had Mafia cases that have gone before him. And so you mentioned that the way he commanded the courtroom really drew upon that experience of how you deal with Mafia bosses and whether it's from the anonymous jury to this kind of closing instruction to controlling the court, just the command the judge takes, where you have these mobsters who are used to getting their way, literally putting hits out on people, putting them in their place, letting them know what this court is all about, the kind of august nature of a federal court and the trappings there. Maybe
totally.
Talk to that a little bit.
The majesty of the law. And that's the big thing today. I think it's the number one lesson. Trump is brought to heel. And, so for his supporters, he's not only a guy, I mean, this is a whole different episode, I realize, but why does he get any sort of popularity? I think he's not only a guy who breaks all the rules, but he gets away with it. And to have a federal judge with the seal behind him and, who knows what he's doing, saying, sit the F down, and telling Haba she's going to, that I think is the theme of the whole day. We can talk about the verdict exactly. We can talk about some of the finer points of evidence, but the main thing, Trump brought to heel. And, every other time he's been beaten up, he's just, come out and say, "Oh, this is all. It was the perfect call. It was the perfect verdict. Not today." And you could see Carroll and Kaplan come out jubilant, and him coming out totally incensed and issuing a nasty statement, not defaming her again. However, I think he's kind of learned his lesson there. Same with Haba. He's a loser today, and that's the number one thing he doesn't want to be. He can't abide being.
I want to get into this $83.3 million verdict because I do think that does sting. Donald Trump does brag about his wealth in ways that don't match reality. We also saw the Financial Monitor in the New York Attorney General's civil fraud case put out a letter on Friday to Justice Arthur Engoron informing of a lot of discrepancies with Trump's financials there. But we could save that for some other hot takes. You mentioned something in passing, but I think it is important for all of our viewers to know. You mentioned that when you were a younger lawyer, although I still think, Harry, I still consider you a young lawyer right now.
Young for my age.
you vetted Judge Kaplan. Describe to our viewers what it means to vet a judge.
Okay.
And then what did you kind of determine about Judge Kaplan when you vetted him, and when did you vet him?
94. It's a funny role. So many people in government are really kids. I don't mean like me, young looking. I mean like, snot-nosed kids. And so I went through all the who's who in Manhattan to ask them about this person that was going to be nominated. He was a big shot partner at this white shoe firm you probably heard of called Paul Weiss. So he was a no-nonsense guy then. That's how he was described, and that's how he's been on the bench. He's not a bastard. He's just firm. That's what you sort of want in a judge. And that's supposedly that we got the Clinton administration got what it was looking for in him, because that's another thing that happens is you vet someone, they go on the bench, and you call it black robe disease, like things you get a little heady with power. But he really behaved appropriately, firmly, and it's not easy going up against Trump, because the things that your toolbox that you have, Trump might say, bring it on, make my day. A mistrial, great, more delay. Make him testify or out of the presence of the jury first, great. That's my grievance for the political realm, etc. But what he really did was just keep it from happening in the first place. And again, I just think seeing Trump like that, we'll see. It's so hard to understand what and fathom what his supporters really are jazzed about him. But he was not a strong man today. He was a loser. He got beat up badly. And one thing about the verdict itself, and I think you would know this also. It was a pretty prudent jury. People were talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. What they awarded, I think, is a real chunk. It's real money, by the way, and he's got to post a bond to go forward. Does he have to liquidate some of his prestige properties? We'll see. But it's 3.5 times the compensatories. No one's going to quibble with that. And there were a few times that Kaplan was tough, but everybody in the Second Circuit would understand what a challenge Trump was. I think it's not only that he got beat today, but he just didn't leave himself. Kaplan didn't leave the trial, and Trump didn't create much on appeal. And remember, to go on appeal, he's got to front the money to a supersedious bond, they call it. So. Man, he got really beat up bad today, I think.
The verdict is really, to your point, the perfect amount, whether you're applying New York state law or federal law, and whether you want to use this prism of at most 9x or 10x the other damages as kind of a federal due process issue of when punitive damages get too high, or whether you view them from kind of just New York case law where they think there's runaway verdicts. anywhere in that sweet spot between 3.5 times and 5 times the underlying compensatory damages and the reputational damages combined, you're well within the limits that there's not going to be a reduction there. Maybe Donald Trump tries to press the appeal to the Supreme Court that was rejected by the Second Circuit on the issue of absolute presidential immunity. But you and I will do a hot take that all of these errors, in addition just to Donald Trump's heinous conduct, you had Trump's lawyers not designate experts on time and waive things. You had them not challenge things on the time. They didn't submit the DNA on time. They didn't assert basic affirmative defenses. It was a real kind of negligent handling of the case as just a practitioner watching it. I'll give you the last word on that. And then you and I can surgically take some hot takes on some of these other issues for our viewers.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. I think the legal term might be a shit show in terms of the lawyers. But I just want to make one point about what you said on immunity. Remember, this case happened in 2019. It was the first time he defamed her. It was when he was president. Why did it take so long to come to trial? Exactly because this immunity issue was bouncing around the different courts of appeals, which ultimately ruled against him and said he doesn't have immunity because you do have immunity. We're finding this out in the criminal setting if you're within the outer perimeter of your official duties, and the courts have pretty carefully and on the facts, the kind of thing a Supreme Court doesn't reverse, said he is not within when he's there defaming her on the White House lawn. He's not within the outer perimeter. So I don't see the court taking or reversing, and it would have to be now the Supreme Court the immunity issue. I think he's toast on that as well.
Well, we'll see what he does next in terms of having to post this bond. To your point, notably absent from Trump's ranting and raving post was any mention of E. Jean Carroll.
Yeah.
Let's you and I do another hot take on what we think is going to happen next, whether there's going to be injunctive relief sought, kind of what we saw in the Giuliani case, another defamation case that pairs it with injunctive relief, and kind of where we go from here. It'll be interesting to see if E. Jean Carroll, even after a verdict of this size, $83.3 million, wants to do another lawsuit again. But at some point, you're going to have to stop his behavior, and the only way to do that may be through an injunction. And I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. It's partnered with the MeidasTouch network, and Harry does incredible hot takes there and kind of covers the issues differently, or different slices of issues than you're going to get here at the MeidasTouch network. So I couldn't recommend enough for everybody to go and make sure you're subscribed to Talking Feds. And when you subscribe there, you can say that MeidasTouch sent you. You can say Ben and Harry.
Ben send me. No, that's right. It's the combo. You'll get the sassy atmospheric stuff, and then we try to give the legal straight scoop that is informing all this stuff. So
and he does it in a student class sometimes too, not just a teacher.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you everybody for watching. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 3 million subscribers thanks to your support. Have a great one.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.